Good morning and Boker Tov. This week's Torah portion, the Jewish people are given the manna, which rains down from heaven as a gift. And until today, we have an expression, it's like manna from heaven, a free gift from God. But at first, when the Jewish people receive the manna, they don't know what it is. And they come to Moses and they say, manhu, which means, what is this? They never seen food raining down from heaven, and they're not sure what it is exactly. But then when God gives them the laws of Shabbat, and God says, you're going to receive on Friday a double portion of manna from heaven, because on Shabbat you may not go out and collect the manna from the field. And that is why every Friday night until today, we have 2 chalot on the Shabbat table, to remember the double portion of manna that fell from heaven on Friday, to provide for Friday and for Shabbat, teaching us an essential lesson, that you don't have to work 7 days a week. You could take the day of Shabbat as a rest, and God will give you a double portion on Friday for Shabbat as well, because all sustenance comes from above, from God. Even the food that we work for and earn and plant is like the manna from heaven, a gift from God, provided by Hashem. So at first the Jews say, what is it? Manhu. But then the Torah says, okay, you're going to have the manna on a double portion on Friday, and you could prepare it, you could bake it, you can cook it, you could prepare it for Shabbat. And then the Torah says that this piece of manna from heaven was like a wafer, like a cracker, and it tasted sweet like honey cookies. And the question is, at first they didn't know what it was. And now when it comes to Shabbat, it's defined as a sweet honey cake. And furthermore, rabbis say that whatever you thought of when you ate the manna, whatever you imagined, any taste, any flavor, any type of food, that's what the manna tasted like. What is the meaning of what the rabbis are saying? That whatever you thought about is what you tasted in the food. And our rabbis teach us a very important lesson. You see, during the week the Jews were busy, they were hurried, they were traveling from place to place, and therefore, even though it was manna from heaven, they said, what is it? They didn't have time or presence of mind to appreciate what it was. But when it came Shabbat, the day of rest, when they were able to sit with their family and enjoy the peace and the tranquility of Shabbat and eat the manna, suddenly they tasted the sweetness like honey in the manna from heaven. And whatever they thought of is what they tasted in the food. And this is such a relevant lesson to all of our lives. We could be receiving the greatest blessings of manna, gifts from God, from heaven, from above. But if we don't take the time to appreciate it, to enjoy it, if we don't take the time to think about it and have intentionality and cognizance of what we're experiencing, then we could rush through life with the greatest manna falling from heaven, descending upon us, and go around and saying, what is it? We don't even know what it is. We don't even stop to think about the beauty of what God has granted us. We could walk by the most beautiful scenery, but if we're distracted, we don't appreciate the glory of nature and God's gifts to us. We could see the beauty of our family, of our children, of our spouses, but if we're too obsessed and distracted with other mundane things, we don't appreciate their goodness and kindness. But when it came a day of rest, we were able to take a day and block out all the distractions and just focus on our blessings and appreciate the sweetness of what we have. The Chafetz Chaim once said, what's if a Jew ate the manna and didn't think of any type of food? What did it taste like? And he said, if you thought about nothing, it tasted like nothing. How true in all of our lives. Life takes on meaning and beauty and purpose when we give it thought, when we think about God and appreciate God and pray to God, when we study His Torah, when we focus, then we take and enjoy the richness of every experience. You know, yesterday, there was two big football games. And while I'm not a football fan, I watched the last 2 minutes of the game with my children. The game between the Chiefs and the Bengals. And it was an extraordinary play. It was like a minute and a half left to the game. And the Chiefs had the ball. And the quarterback ran towards the touchdown. And a player on the Bengals, when he had already stepped out of bounds, pushed the quarterback of the Chiefs, which earned them a 15-yard penalty, which allowed the Chiefs to kick a field goal and break the tie of 2020 to win the game and go to the Super Bowl by a win of 3 points, 23-20. And I felt so sorry for that player. Everyone makes mistakes, but to make a mistake like that cost you the season and cost your team a chance at the Super Bowl, and to do it on national TV for the whole world to see. And when he was weeping, this player, my heart went out to him, and I was heartened to see how his teammates comforted him and said, don't take the blame. It's not one person or one play that loses a game. But my heart went out to him because that's a painful pill to swallow. But he got penalized for unnecessary roughness, pushing the opposing player when he was already out of bounds, shoving him. And I'm sure the player didn't do it intentionally. He was so focused on pushing that player and tackling him that even when he went out of bounds, he didn't maybe realize, and he wasn't able to stop himself, and he just continued in his forward motion and pushed him as he was planning on doing all along, not realizing or not stopping to acknowledge that he was already out of bounds and could not push him. And I think this is a perfect example of intentionality. We have to focus on what we're doing, and when we don't focus, when we stop thinking, when we don't concentrate, and then we just act impulsively without thought, that can be such a terrible mistake. That could have such a consequence and such a penalty that unfortunately this player will have to live with for a long time. And so the manna teaches us, God gives us endless blessings. Think about them, appreciate them. Live your life with thought, with meaning, and with purpose. And then you'll realize that the manna from heaven is indeed, like all of life, just so sweet and beautiful. Have a wonderful day.